Chuck, thank you so much for jumping on this with me. I know we've been back and forth trying to figure out the schedule thing, and you are actually the first remote dad that's been on the show. So this is really fun.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you for having me. I feel honored to be on the show with you.
Absolutely, which is really neat because Jeff Stay was the last guest on the show, and his sister is the one that actually recommended you. She's like, "Look, you gotta get a hold of Chuck. He's an awesome guy. He's a great father." And I was like, "Absolutely, that's what this whole show's about." So thanks for jumping on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, so first things first, let's just get a background. Tell me about like a little bit about your family, how many kids you have, where you're at, all that stuff.
Okay. So I was raised in a British family. My parents were both from born and raised in England. I was eighth of nine children, so a lot of family dynamics there. My father worked a lot. He was an engineer, was not at home much, and my mom just was very strict with us, very conservative. But just everything was scheduled. We had chores, and it was. I mean, I've had a really good childhood. I loved being around my brothers and sisters. Always wanted to be a good dad. My dad was very. He's a very good dad. He just was working really hard. Um, so I got married. This will be in May. It'll be 22 years ago. I got married very young. Met a girl who was my oldest sister's best friend's daughter. They had been plotting to get us together for a long time. She lived in Kansas, I lived in Washington State, and I was actually dating somebody else that I'd been with for a long time in high school. And it's a really long story. But anyway, we met in Olathe one night. I was on my way to go see my girlfriend who was going to school in Austria at the time. Yeah, again, I really can't get all into that. But anyway, she was awesome. And the first person I'd ever met that loved me back just as much as I loved her after we went through all the other relationship ending. And she was just awesome to me. So we've been married almost 22 years. And my kids, we've got four kids. My oldest is going to be 20 this next month, or in May. He is a YouTuber, and that's up on his setup right now. He's actually at a conference right now. They flew him out to do a concert. He has almost 500,000 subscribers. He makes a lot more money than I will ever make, and he goes by his name is CG5 if you want to look him up. And then my second son, his name is Jonah. So my oldest son is Charlie. My second son is Jonah. He's 17 and in high school. He has autism. He is verbal, but he's basically the reason we moved to Missouri. We needed family close by, and my wife's family is from here, and they are awesome with him. My daughter, her name is Matilda. She's in eighth grade. She's actually at the school where I'm teaching right now. My youngest son is Silas, and he's in sixth grade, and he'll be at my middle school next year. They're very animated. It's just kind of my background. My wife and I are both performers, singers, actors, that kind of stuff. And so we've got a really fun family dynamic going on. And we live in Missouri, and right now I'm teaching, but there's a lot that's led to this point.
Sure. How fun, like, does so when you play music, because you were saying music, acting, like more of the art stuff, you feel that that really like melts with your family well? Are you all kind of part of that? I mean, obviously your son with the YouTubing, that's like the acting plays into all that, and it seems like a
Yeah,
fun dynamic.
it is. Definitely. I'm not an instrumentalist. I just vocal is all I did. So I sang a lot, and my wife as well. My oldest son has picked up instruments. He's actually on. He hates when I say this, but he's kind of on the spectrum. He's kind of an Asperger's kid, and it really shows through in his music. Like he can listen to a song twice and memorize it and recreate it. one time he was challenged to create a song and release it quickly, and he did it in 1 hour. Released it. It's one of his biggest hits, actually. It's about, I don't know if you ever remember the meme. Do you know the way? Do you know the way? And the kids were saying that he did a song called "Do You Know the Way," and it's one of his biggest ones. It's a weird song, but that's kind of his genius, and it's hard for him to hold a good conversation, but he can write you a song in 5 seconds. So, and that has really permeated everything in our family. We all sing, we all are very animated, especially my daughter. She's great. I mean, when she was little, we were worried that she was going to become like a serial killer because she was so intense. Like, I have to have this. You don't know, I'm going to die. I'm literally going to die. And she was 2 years old when she was saying this stuff. And, but she has turned that around into, I mean, she just wants to do what's right. She already has all her college stuff planned out, where she wants to go, her plan for high school, all the classes. And she's in 8th grade. And everybody says the thing that makes me the proudest is when people say that my kids are kind. And she is very, very kind. That's the first thing people say about her. And when she was little, I wouldn't have thought that would happen, but thankfully it has. So yes, arts is a big part of our life. When I lived in Arizona a couple years ago, I got involved with a place called Hale Theater in Gilbert and did a couple productions. It had been like 22 years since I'd done anything. Life gets in the way, and
Sure.
all that. So, because I had decided in college, I kind of came to a crossroads. Did I want to do athletics? Did I want to do drama and all that? And I had a really bad experience with the drama production, and so I decided athletics. And then after that, I had no time to do productions because they take a lot of time. So I did a couple productions for them, and it was really cool. And the kids, I felt like I really wanted to show my kids that no matter where you are, what age you are, you have a God-given gift. You need to share it with people. So I try to do that. And also for the school that I helped start, it was an art school, is an art school. They still, I think that's where your contact for me came from, was one of the parents at my school in Arizona. It's called Lumos Arts Academy. It's a digital arts school that we started. Anyway, so I just want to be a good example.
Absolutely. One thing that you said there, I mean, there's so many things that we could just like keep cranking on. Um, you had mentioned the fact that all this other stuff is nice, but kindness is the most important thing to you. Why is that?
Um, I've had a lot of experiences in my life that kind of led me to this point. I've always been a peacemaker, but when I was younger, I was very awkward. It's very different coming from a British household. I was not, my sense of humor is a little weird. If you've ever seen Monty Python or anything like that, it's just not normal. And so I was teased a lot. I was a geek growing up until I got to the 8th grade. We moved to a new town in Washington. And the first person I met was the most popular kid in school. He didn't know me from anybody. So we became best friends. So all of a sudden I was popular. And I saw from both sides, from being a geek to being popular, what it was and what the power that popular people had. So I just always decided I was going to be kind and I was going to be friends with everybody, and nobody would be able to say, oh, I don't like him, he's a snob, or he's a jock, or I just tried to get to know everybody. And part of that has to do with my faith, trying to be like Jesus,
Mhm.
giving. Service is a huge deal for me. When I see my kids serving each other, that is the hugest for me. When I don't have to ask them, and when they say thank you, and when they say please, all that. My mom was a little more, you will say please and thank, because being from the British,
Sure.
children are not be seen and not heard, all that. That was kind of hard to get over. And she changed a lot as we grew up, but my older siblings, they said it was a lot different for them growing up than and that's a kind of a spot of contention for us. They call me the golden boy, but that's another story. So just being kind, no matter what you believe, no matter who you are, there's no excuse for not being kind. There's no excuse for anger. And that's something that I really tried to get across with teachers when I was administrating. And there's no such thing as a bad day when you're a teacher. You have to be an example for these kids. And the only thing that kids listen to is your example. I mean, they don't care what you're saying as long as you're doing something different. They're going to follow that. They're going to see that. And I mean, kids are smart. Kids, and they see through, the pretentiousness real fast. Like, they think you don't even like them, you're not even important. And it's just the wah, 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 the Charlie Brown thing is going on. So kindness is the only thing. It's really, if my kids can be kind, they're going to be successful and they're going to be happy. So yeah, that's what I think.
That's so awesome. I do want to jump into the fact, like, especially raising a child with autism, and then, like you said, your oldest child, like the way that he can just memorize those things. But then you said from a social side, it gets a little difficult at times. And having your other children, I mean, there's this all this dynamic in it. But before I do that, you had mentioned your father worked a lot. My father was the same way. Like, I know he was present. I know he did a lot for me, but as a child, and now, like, looking back, I'm like, man, he was just working all the time. So I had a recording recently that I talked about just get on the floor and play with your kids. If your child wants you to get on the floor, your kid's like, come play with me, just stop, because all the other stuff is really irrelevant at the time in the big scheme of things. Just stop and play. And I don't recall those moments with my dad. But when you reflect back with like things that you learned or took away from your father, what are some of those things?
My father, what I say was, because he passed about 2 years ago, which is also another story, because I actually went to Arizona because I had a feeling like he was going to pass. And we got to spend 6 years with him when we moved over there before he did. But he actually got cancer, a tumor in his brain. It was about grapefruit size. So they diagnosed him, and 4 weeks later he was gone. And it really brought our family together. It was really cool because my dad was a caretaker. His father worked in film in England, as he did animatronics kind of back then. He built robots for
Wow.
films, and very successful man in his own right. But when my father was about 7, he had 3 sisters, I believe, and he was the youngest. My grandfather decided that he was going to leave his wife for his 16-year-old secretary. And so he left, actually moved in with her family, was a 16-year-old. And my father was left the man of the house at 7. So he kind of he was always taking care of his sisters. And he said to me that really affected him, because his bedroom was right next to his mother's, and he would literally hear her cry herself to sleep just almost every night. She never remarried. She was just lonely and sad. And he always promised that he would be a caretaker. He would never let his wife feel that way. And that's what he did. He always made sure we had, good, money. He always made sure that he took care of us. But I think he just wasn't around. Like, I look back and I have a couple of times he went maybe on a camp out for our father-son camp out for our church, maybe twice. I remember he was throwing a ball with me, and I was hitting it to him in a field in Arizona when I was in junior high, because he had never thrown a ball with me, and I knew he was an athlete. Well, I found out that day he was an athlete. He played cricket, and he was throwing to me from the 50-yard line, I was throwing to him, and he was holding the bat down like a cricket bat at his feet. He's just like, throw the ball at me and I'll hit it back to you. I was like, well, how are you going to, I can't throw it in the air. How are you going to hit it? He goes, no, bounce it. So that's how we do it. So I threw it, from 50 yards, and he would just hit it right back to me. I was like, I had no idea he could even play sports. Um, but that I have that memory, and then my right before I left for a mission with my church, we drove to Kansas where I met my wife now, and we drove together, 24-hour trip, and I think we probably did about 10 minutes worth of talking. Like we just didn't talk. So I don't have a lot of interaction time memories with my father until as an adult. We did spend a lot of time with my family, and but I knew he loved me. We just didn't have many memories, and I kind of feel that that's affected how I've reacted to his death. I mean, it's really hard to say it, but I just don't miss him a whole lot because I don't have those memories. We don't have that time together. I mean, he was there, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
And for some of my brothers and sisters, some of them, it's really hard for them. But for me, and I think it might be also because we did have that time before he went, and we were all able to say goodbye before he passed. So, but I have always said, if my kids want to play with me, if I want to do something, I'm going to do it. And so, that's different for this family because like my YouTuber son, it'll be, hey, Dad, can you look at these lyrics? Because lyrics is something I like to do. And with words, again, that's not his huge forte. So I'll work on lyrics with him, or he'll say, hey, what do you think about this beat I'm creating? And I'll say, yeah, I really like that. Or, hey, you need to tweak this. And then with my daughter, it's just driving to school in the mornings and her telling me about, I've got this student that said this and this kid, and what do you think? And just whenever she needs me, or sitting watching a movie with her and my younger son, that's something that really means something to them. And they won't really say it, but I can tell because they'll cuddle right up next to me and ask me to scratch their arms. My kids have this weird thing about getting their arms scratched. They're like cats. They're like, meow, meow, scratch my arms. And so, yeah. And then for my son with autism, it's just, he loves to go in the car. So we go on drives together. And when we were in Arizona, he loved to hike. So we would hike every trail you could think of, and just hours and hours. So it's that time that really, I think, I mean, that's what love is time. And that's the one commodity that we can't get back. So it's our most precious commodity. So when we give time, we give love.
That's great. I say that all the time, not in those words. I was way more eloquent than what I say, but I tell people a lot of the time, I'm like, listen, we fight all the time for money. I was like, which is this commodity that just you can exchange really quick. I mean, you can go ask someone, hey, do you have some money on you? And they could give it to you. But it's like we don't fight that hard for time.
Yeah.
And that's like truly the thing I think in life we should fight for is that quality time with individuals because you can't get that back, right?
No,
You
no.
can always get more money or less money. I mean, money just comes and goes. It's the ebb and flow of it, right?
And
Um,
that's one thing my dad, actually, I don't remember a lot of things he said. I have a really horrible memory, but I just remember him always saying, this used to frustrate my mom because she did the budget, and my dad was not the best with keeping money around. He was always like buying gadgets. He loved technology and speakers and stuff like that. So he would always just say, it's just money. It's just money. And my mom was like, yeah, we don't have any. So but I do remember him saying that. Like, he was always very generous. But he always gave of his time. He was always serving people outside of our house. He was always going and helping people, like widows. He would build them things because he was a carpenter. He was an electrician, all self-taught. And so I knew that was his mindset.
that's pretty amazing. It kind of seems like that segued into what you said, because I mean, service is a big deal to you as well. So maybe that was a takeaway subconsciously, or not, that you were like, that's something I want to implement in my own life.
I just wish I was more useful and I could do some of the things he did. All I could do is, like, I got a strong back and I can carry stuff. So otherwise, I'm a good worker, but I don't give me anything skilled to do.
I bet you're downplaying that, but we'll go with it.
Yeah, not really.
So let's see. What do you think with your children? What do you think is the most essential or vital role that you play as a father to them?
All right, now this is not popular with, especially with my kids in class, because I am very open with them about my personal life. Like I have a whole slideshow I do with them at the beginning of the year talking about my story, and I want them to know me because I want them to know why I am the way I am and why I make weird jokes and why I'm laughing at things when they're like, "What? I don't know what was funny. I don't." And so I'm very open with them. But the thing they always have trouble with is I say, I know you're not going to like me saying this, but my number one role is a husband. And that is the best thing I could do for my kids, because when they see that, and there was a quote from somebody in my church that said, the best, if you want your kids to respect you, love their mother. And that's something has been very important to me. And my kids know that my wife is number one, and they love us for it. I mean, they'll tease us because we're very affectionate, I'll say, together, and they just go, "Oh my gosh, stop!" Of course, my younger son, he still like pushes our heads together when we're kissing. He's like, "Yeah, yeah." Anyway, so, but I think that'll change. He's 12, so hopefully
Yeah.
that'll change. So, 1 second. Sorry, that's my son with autism. He's asking me for food. I just made him egg toast. Anyway, so
Well, and family's first on this. If you have to run or
yeah, yeah.
whatever, you jump back in. So,
Oh no,
yeah.
he just, my wife's at work today, so I'm on spring break. But yeah, when I that feeling of security, I think, especially in this age where everybody's getting divorced
Yes.
and there's so many split up families and splintered families, my kids know that that relationship is sacred and safe, and that gives them that security to fall back on, that and dad's not going anywhere, mom's not going anywhere. They love each other, and as a result, because they came from her, I love them. So it's, I feel like my role as husband is number one, father's number two, um, but it's worked out really well for us. Now, as a father, as far as my role with them, I think my most important position would be that of a teacher, and but more example wise than talking, which is something that is a weird dynamic when it comes to me and my wife, because I mean, and without wanting to be sexist or anything, but women like to talk more than men for the most part, and I'm not one that will sit and repeat something to you over and over. I'll be like, okay, this is how I feel. This is what I think you should do. Let's do it. And then I'll try to remember to live it. Um, Whereas opposed to my wife will say it, 7 times over and over. And I'm like, okay, I think we've got it. Let's show them now. And so it's good, but we've got a good relationship. So it works out, and nobody sleeps on the couch when I say that, which is really good. But yeah, that's what I believe is my first primary role.
The best thing, I'm going to take that. That's the soundbite of the moment is like, kids, listen, I love you, but mom's number one. Like, I think that that's so important because, and I say that with my wife all the time. Like, I'm like, and we joke with our children about that. It's like, look, your mom was for, like, I chose your mom, and you guys are a byproduct of us just working things out and being here. It's like,
Yeah.
it's not that I don't love you guys. I always will love you. But it's like, your mom was my number one, And I think that
Yeah.
by that, like you said, they can feel that, right? And then they see that love is not going anywhere is a
Yeah.
good thing because I come from a split family, and growing up, that's hard. It's hard, like, oh, I'm gonna go visit my mom for a while, and then I'm gonna stay with my dad for a while, and it's like, you I would like crave that. I look at my kids all the time. I'm like, you guys have no idea. Like, you have no idea how good things are. Like, just the fact that you have parents that want to be together that bad. Like, you'll never witness some of those other like pain points that unfortunately a lot of people are going through. So,
Yeah, wow, I can't even imagine what that must be like. It's just, yeah, I'm
yeah.
sorry that you had to go through that, but I'm sure
Hey,
you've,
it is what it is, right? It's what makes us who we are. Like,
yeah,
I think Tony, it's actually funny, and we'll get back to this, but Tony Robbins on his Netflix special had a great quote in there. It was one of those like aha moments for me,
yeah,
is when he said, everybody plays the exact role they're meant to play in your life. And when you look at it like that, it's easier to forgive and realize that, even when the parent situation, all that, they're just humans. They were doing what they were doing. And it's very fortunate that you have other people in your life that do play that strong role or that more mentor role or whatever that allow you to be the person that you become. So
yeah.
but what would you say? Because this one always cracks me up because when we become new fathers or new parents, we get over inundated with like, this is what you should do. That's what you should do. Blah, blah, blah. What does anything stick out as that one like worst piece of advice that you received?
Uh, I don't remember a worst piece. Wow, that's an interesting question. Well, I had a lot of people say that, and there's a lot of people going back and forth on this topic right now, but sleeping with your kids, like people, I saw friends do that where they had their kids in their bedroom, in their bed, and um, I just I saw the effect that that had because I see a lot of relationships where the wives are moms and the dads are just kind of another kid, and I
Mhm.
hate that joke when people are like, yeah, I have 4 kids, but I consider my husband my 5th kid. I just, it's one of those moments where I'm like, dude, that's not funny. That's
No,
sad.
it
That's
is sad.
sad. And and then you see no affection, but I feel like the kids have to know that you're in love. Like
Mm.
there's a romantic part of that relationship. It's not just we have a sacred relationship and let me give my wife a kiss on the cheek and call her sweetie and honey and never use her name. It's just I've never bought into that. And then it's, again, you got to put your relationship first because if the kids are in the bed anyway, there's a barrier there. So
Absolutely.
it's and so I would say I've never bought into that. And again, people saying your kids have to know that you love them. So whatever the cost, but when that is your goal, like to make your kids love you, and that's a slippery slope because
Mm.
then it becomes, and I see kids like this at my school. I teach middle school, so I see entitled kids every day who cannot accept responsibility and who don't know what it is to for you to say no to them. Like it's just like a breakdown moment, and I see a lot of that happening, and I think that's because of breakdowns in marriages. And so I would say, yeah, people that have had told me, got to make sure your kids love you, or know that you love them, and that you're their biggest fan and that everything is awesome. People that say that, oh, that's fantastic. When they use these really meaningful adjectives, they overuse them. That gets to me too, because kids should know when something's special and when it's just, hey, that's cool. You cleaned up your room. Great. I expect that. But, you helped your brother clean his room and I didn't ask you. That's awesome. But not everything is awesome. Not everything is fabulous. It dulls it when you overuse that. So I would say people that have said, try to make sure your kids know you love them or they're going to run away and become drug dealers and all that kind of stuff. It's like, no, it's if they know you respect them through your attitude and through your actions, and they know you love their mom, and that relationship is sacred, then that's where the happiness comes.
I really like that. Um, obviously there's like the best pieces of advice that you get as well. And you were speaking a lot about throughout this, like your religious beliefs and your background on that. Like, how important do you think that plays into the dynamics of your family?
Oh, it's all about that. I mean, really, it's not something that comes from my religion, but the what would Jesus do answers every philosophical question you can place. I mean, or any pose. If there's a situation, I just say to myself, if Jesus were, which is sometimes it gets really annoying because I know what he would do, and I'm like, there's no way I could do that. I've had people, I've had, I've had good friends, like, without going into a lot of detail, but the last situation where I left the school that I had started, my dream school, and yes, we needed to move because of family concerns, but it was a bad ending because of a friend that I had hired betrayed me, and I could be bitter about it. I could be like, trying to put him in his place or whatever, but I was able to walk away and just be like, hey, that's on him, and he has his reasons. Because I used to hang on to stuff a lot, and I used to really hold grudges. And I actually was sent to a leadership training called Landmark, and it basically, the whole premise was life is meaningless and empty, which just sounds really depressing. But when you realize that we as humans assign meaning to everything. Like when somebody cuts us off on the freeway, oh my gosh, that guy's such a jerk. He must be what's he trying to do to me? Really, it's most of the time when you get cut off, they don't even see you. They're not even
Right.
thinking about you. But that will ruin your whole day. And you're just like, oh, I wish I could just do something to them. And they don't even know you exist. It's like anger that it's self-administered poison.
Mhm.
That's the thing I took away from that training was just let go of that stuff. And there's so much good we can do if if we do selfless acts, if we serve people. When I was an administrator, and I'm hoping next year I'll be an administrator again, but anyway, because that's something I love, working with kids that are in trouble. Because
Mhm.
as an assistant principal, as a principal, that's what you do. These kids come in, and I just say, a lot of times they'll say, well, this kid did this. This kid made me do this. And I say, well, no, they did something and you decided to do this. Like if somebody slaps you in the face, you do not have to slap them back. If somebody holds a gun to your head and says, eat that ice cream, and you're lactose intolerant, you don't have to eat. I mean, you may die, but you don't have to do it. And um, just that the power of choice, that all comes from my religious background of knowing that when as far as I believe, when we get to the end and it's judgment day, we're going to be the judgment's going to be based on what was in our hearts when we did what we did. Not if we helping people so that we look good on Facebook and Instagram, or are we helping people just because it was the right thing to do and because we want to serve God. Um, so everything I do, that it comes back to that. Um, so yes, that is a huge part of my life.
Oh, that's great. Jumping over, like I said, I wanted to ask you just about raising a child like with autism. Like, what was the biggest learning moment for you? Because a lot of times people are like, "Oh, it's difficult to raise a child with certain kind of needs," and it's like, yeah, but there's got to be a lot of gifts in that as well. What are some of the things you believe that your son has taught you through this whole experience?
Um, well, say the most, I guess, the biggest thing for me is just perspective, because he can't tell me why. That's one question he'll never answer or be able to answer until, I believe after this life, he'll be like, okay, so dad, here's what was happening when I said this, because he can't answer why. He will, if you ask him a question, he will answer in whatever way he thinks will get you to stop talking, because he
Okay.
doesn't want to hear you talking. He just wants He actually just wants to go on a drive and be outside. And so he'll ask questions like, for example, this morning, um, he he had just finished a smoothie. His mom had made him a smoothie, and right after he finished, he had in his mind that he wanted egg toast, which is we cut a hole in the toast or the bread and fry it with the egg in the middle. It's really good. Anyway, I saw it on a movie. And he had it in his head that he wanted that. So he said, can I get egg toast? And I said, well, we're going to take mom to work and then we're going to come back and then we'll get you egg toast. But I think he probably asked that question about 30 times between the time we took her and time we got back. And I just had to keep saying, Jonah, you just asked that question. I will get it for you. But he just has no concept of now or later. It's always now for him. It's always so. I just really have to step back and be patient. I can't be angry because if you get angry with him, his world will come apart. Like he doesn't even understand because there's no guile in him. And that's something that's part of what my oldest son, my YouTuber son, does is he doesn't have any of that. Like he doesn't care who you are. He's going to treat you the way he treats everybody, which is incredible. It's my favorite attribute of him. But my son is just a pure spirit, and he just says whatever's on his mind, and he'll say it over and over and over. And you just have to be patient and answer him and just say, I can't understand what you're going through. And that's something I really try hard to understand people and to have empathy. And that's something I've always prided myself on, but I can't understand where he's coming from because he comes from he's in a different world. He's like looking through glass at the rest of us, and the world is so loud to him and so intense, and he's just trying to make sense of it. And I've really got to be selfless with him. And once in a while, we'll get a connection where he'll look at me and he'll be like, I love you, Dad. And I can tell that he's saying it not just to get me to be happy, because one of the things he'll say is, your face looks really nice when he wants you to stop talking. He'll be like, what, Dad, your face looks really nice right now. It's really nice, really. And you're like, okay, I'm sorry, Jonah, let me go in the other room so you can have some alone time and listen to your 80s music, because that's all he does all day. And then he'll use 80s lyrics to, like, he'll say, I'm hungry like the wolf, or just, he'll say really random stuff. The most random thing he ever said was in a car, it was, Tina Turner doesn't like Mexicans. And I have no idea where that came from. But it was just, we weren't listening to Tina Turner. There were no Mexicans anywhere near us. It was just, he's just very random, and you can't attach meaning to anything he says, other than he just wants to connect some way. So yeah, I think service is the big thing for him, because you're not going to get a big hug and a kiss from him. You're not going to get, once in a while he will. There'll be a glimmer. It'll shine through. And we're working on trying to get genetic testing, but we're waiting for the state insurance to kick in. And, being low income now with teaching and insurance, I can't put him on our insurance because for some reason, being autistic drives up your premiums. He never gets sick. Like, he never gets sick. But if we add him to our plan, it's $500 extra a month. And so it's like, so we're waiting for state health, and we're going to do a genetic test, because I have a lot of friends that have done that and seen huge benefits, because then they'll say, oh, this medicine might help you, or this diet. So yeah, I kind of rambled on that. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. I love it. Just a couple more things. I want to respect your time here. What would you say is the biggest shift from the first child, becoming a dad for your first child, to raising your fourth child? I mean, what do you think was that biggest like differentiator in that?
Well, I think the biggest difference for me is that they are so different. Because my first child, we didn't know what it was to raise kids, really, and so we were testing things out. But he was so different than everybody else. He didn't talk till he was 6, but when he was a year and a half, he started making beats with his feet. just stomping, like he'd be like, and he would do the rhythms in, in measures. So and he would imitate stuff he heard on the radio, and but he couldn't talk. And then he started seeing numbers and letters and trees, and he started, when he got into kindergarten, he tested at 6th grade reading comprehension. I mean, reading, like he could read 6th grade words out loud. He wasn't really comprehending them, but he could sound it all out. And but he couldn't hold a conversation, So that, going to my son now, my youngest, who is very, I mean, he's my one hope for an athletic child. Like that was all I did. I loved athletics, and that was my thing. And of course singing was also, but I finally got a son that I think will actually do. Anyway, so he, and he has a little bit of OCD, which I think comes from, our weird mix of family dynamics, but he's doing basketball now, and he's probably going to be running, because I used to run, and so he, that's been really different. But as far as the way that I approach it, I don't think that has really changed that much, because I had a really good background. I had a lot of people to learn from. Me being the 8th of 9 kids, I
Right.
saw a lot of mistakes honestly, from my brothers and sisters, and they'd be okay with me saying that, because 9 kids, there are only, so I think there are only 3 of us who have not been divorced. And I saw things happen, people that put too much into their kids, not enough into their wife, or vice versa. I had a lot of examples, and I watched. Like, I've always been a watcher. Like, I notice things, and I'm not the most intelligent book-wise, but socially, I just always notice things. And so I watched my brothers and sisters and my parents, and I just said, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that. And so I think that foundation has always been strong, but the biggest change has just been that my kids are all so different from each other. But yeah, I think that was probably the biggest thing.
Cool. No, I like that a lot. Um, let's see. We chatted about a couple of these things here. Before we jump into the final question, I just want to know: is there what is your favorite thing just to do as a dad? If you were just to be able to take any of your children and do one thing with them, what would that be?
Well, what I would want to do would be different from what they would want to do, because I love going on hikes, and most of my kids hated hiking. I just loved getting out and just being one-on-one with them and having it being silent. But just going on dates, I guess, with my kids, and going to a movie with them, or taking them out to get a shake, and we've had to be more creative now with the loss of income from being an administrator to a teacher, and with me having to work more jobs. But just carving out a time where we can just go do something one-on-one. And that could also just be going and getting a movie. Not, you don't get movies anymore. You just download a movie or
Right.
get a Netflix. And thank goodness for VidAngel, that makes all my movies appropriate. So, but just one-on-one time, I think, is the most effective. And that's also something I learned from being in a big family, because it's great getting together with the whole family, but it's just chaos, and there's no connection going on, really. I mean, there's some laughter going on, and when we all get together, but the most effective time is time when you're one-on-one, and finding that time and doing those things with my kids has been the big thing. And it's cool too now with my youngest son. I can just go over to the rec center with him and shoot baskets or rebound for him, and talk to him about what he's doing with basketball. It's just easy. I mean, easy,
Yeah.
but again, it's just time. and one-on-one time, I think, is the most effective and most meaningful thing for them.
That's so good. What would be for this, the final question I'd love to ask dads is like your advice. We kind of, it's probably going to coincide with that, but your advice that you would give to either a soon to be dad or a dad that's just in it and is kind of going through his own frustrations at the moment. Is there any advice that you would give them?
Uh, I think it's the same advice I give to teachers when they're having difficulty in their class. Because as an administrator, I would have parents in my class or in my office a lot because that was my job to deal with problems. And I mean, 9.9 times out of 10, the last question after we sifted through all the poo-poo was, I don't think the teacher likes my kid. And so I would say to these teachers, the old saying, they don't care what you know if they don't know that you care. I mean, I'm probably butchered that, but if your kids don't know that you care about them and that you respect them, and respect is a two-way street, then nothing else is going to matter. So I would say, let your kids know that you respect them. Number one, love their mother, because a lot of that will fall in the line, but respect your kids, show them respect, listen to them, and don't talk down to them, because that never works with kids, which is something you see teachers do all the time. I mean, who of our, if you were to go out with your friends, would you go to your friends and be like, hey, sit down, be quiet, I'm talking? You wouldn't say that. You'd be like, oh, you're saying something to me. Let me listen to you. And then I'll tell you what I need you, if I have something that I need you to do for me. It's just show respect, spend time, love their mom, kindness, service, that stuff.
And all the rest will just work itself out, right?
Oh yeah, that's what it is. That's what happens. Yeah.
Chuck, I really do appreciate your time, man. Like it's been great chatting with you. I wish actually we were closer in proximics. I'd love to go out and grab lunch or something. Seemed like just a really
That'd
cool
be
guy.
cool.
Um, and yeah, thank you so much for being on the podcast and jumping on this with me. I really do appreciate it.
Well, it's been my pleasure, Thomas, and thank you. I get a really good vibe from you, and due to Facebook stalking, looks like you guys have a great life going on too. Very busy with with your acting and with your wife singing and all that kind of stuff. I mean, and kids, it looks like you guys have a great life. So I wish you all the best, and thank you again for thinking of me. And yeah, if I'm ever in the neighborhood, I'll have to look you up.
Yeah, same. Awesome, man. Well, get back to your kid and enjoy the rest of your break.
Okay, thanks, Thomas. You
All
too.
right, thank
See ya.
you. See ya.
Bye.